everybody, and welcome to another Top 5 board gaming video. Today's is a follow-up for a video I did a long time ago called my Top 5 Core Principles of Gaming. One of those principles was all about economics, and the thing is, I realized that I actually didn't do an economics video. William McGinnis commented on one of my videos recently asking me about the games, and I realized I should do a video on this. I did one about finance, but not about games with a large-scale economy, or a relatively large-scale economy. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Just to sort of preface things, there are a lot of games, pretty much any game has some sort of an economic aspect to it. Anytime you have money exchanging hands, then you have the economy, right? So anytime you have stock games like Stockpile or Panic on Wall Street, even games like Splendor, or modern art, Going, Gone, anything where you've got this monetary exchange of some sort means that you've got an economy. But what I wanted to focus on today are games that are a little bit more complex, a little bit more strategic, take a little bit longer. I really wanted to focus on games that have a lot of give and take. You have a lot of, price A goes up and therefore price B goes down. Again, very similar to stock games, but with a lot more mechanics involved in them. Most of the games I'll be talking about have multiple of these, not only trade interactions, but also you've got auction mechanics and all sorts of stuff. So I hope that you enjoy this video. As always, please let me know what you guys think in the comments below, but we're going to get started with my number 5. Number 5 is a game that I have discussed quite a bit, and it's actually one that I did a review on quite a while ago as well. It is Power Grid. So Power Grid is sort of a quintessential economic Euro-style game, and the real economy for this game comes in the form of the different resources. At the start of the game, you've got set prices for the different resources, and you take turns going in turn order to purchase them. In addition, you've got an auction mechanic to buy new power plants, and all sorts of really interesting stuff like that. As you go through the game, these different components, these different materials will start to cost less and less, or they will start to cost more. So what you need to do as a player is sort of shift your focus around depending on what everybody else is doing. It's a really great interactive economy, and again, what you need to have for an economic style game is you have to have that interaction amongst all of the other players. I really enjoy this. Really the only reason that this is on the bottom is simply because I enjoy the other 4 games more, because I like the theming of them a little bit more. However, again, Power Grid is an absolute classic. This is a great game. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend you try it out. At the very least, check out my how to play video and my review and gameplay demo, but Power Grid is my number 5. At number 4, I've got a game that is actually a remake of a very classic one where you are going out and building a new colony on an unknown planet. The game itself is Outpost. In this case, I've got the 20th anniversary edition. Like I said, I do have the remake. Now, this is a really interesting game because the idea is that you've got an economy in pretty much every single aspect of this game. You've got a lot of picking of different role capabilities. You've got the ability to choose different workers for your outpost to work in different factories and all that kind of stuff. You've got an auction mechanic to actually purchase these different upgrades for your specific colony, all sorts of different stuff. There is a lot going on with this, and the great thing that I love about this game, well, one of the great things, is the fact that pretty much every single aspect is based a lot on player interaction and seeing what your fellow players are doing, and not necessarily trying to counter it, but trying to sort of answer it with your own thing, because it's not necessarily a good idea for both of you to be going after titanium, for example, and things of that nature, at least not to the same extent. The other great thing I love about this game is its versatility. This plays anywhere from 2 to 9 players. You really do not see that amount of versatility anywhere else. I believe this is the only game I own that has that high of a sort of versatility aspect. I don't know exactly how to say it, but either way, it's a really fun game. It's a great game, and I like it more than Power Grid primarily because of the theme. Like I mentioned, it is a sci-fi thing. I absolutely love sci-fi, and again, I love the versatility aspect of this game as well, and the fact that pretty much everything is based off of limited resources, so there are a lot of relatively tough decisions to make on that front. But either way, Outpost is my number 4. At number 3, I've actually got another reprint game, but this one, instead of being about going and colonizing another planet, it's all about right here, right now on Earth, and specifically the oil business. The game itself is Crude the Oil game. This is an incredibly fun, relatively deeply economic game. The thing that I am a little bit skeptical on, or sketchy on with this, is the fact that you do have a randomness aspect where you're rolling dice, but at the same time, I like that fact in terms of having this as an economic game, because the economy is relatively random and it can be very difficult to predict. So you don't know which of your derricks or which of your stations or whatever are going to be producing properly and all that kind of thing. And that's really what the game becomes about. The real economic aspect in this however, goes to the price of the raw materials. That's really what the game boils down to in terms of the real give and take economic aspect amongst all the players. Now, again, there is a ton of interaction with everything, okay, just like with Outpost. And again, that's why I love this game, and again, why I made this list with games like this, because I wanted to have these more complex games that are sort of all-inclusive in terms of what it is that you're going to be seeing from a larger scale economic aspect. And I like the theme of this game because it seems very appropriate for the type of game that it is. You know, the oil game is something that we hear a lot about these days, and we see movies about it and all this kind of stuff because it is something that is very, very valuable in our current economy, and it's something that a lot of people understand a lot better compared to, for example, colonizing outer space or whatever it happens to be. So it's a really fun game that has a surprisingly deep economic aspect to it. Crude the Oil game, my number 3. At number 2, I have yet another remake game, and this is another one of these sci-fi ones that takes place way off in the distant planet known as Venus. That's right, we're talking about The Merchant of Venus. Now, this is a huge game. This is absolutely ridiculous, and it's wonderful because you've got a lot of different elements to this. I make a lot of comparisons, especially with sci-fi games, to Twilight Imperium, because Twilight Imperium is absolutely insanely huge and has pretty much every single aspect to a game that you could possibly imagine. The problem is, for a list like this, it doesn't fit as much because the economy is just a piece of the whole, whereas The Merchant of Venus is very much focused on two aspects. It's focused on going out and exploring and essentially trying to find the raw materials and things like that, and then it's focused a lot on interaction with your fellow players to perform trade actions and things of that nature. Again, it is tremendously deep and a lot of fun. There are so many moving parts, so many decisions that you have to make each turn, and it's just, you've got different roles that you can play as. You've got a lot of variety in terms of what you're actually making and how you're making it, how you can go about doing it. You've got a lot of responsive elements to where if one person is doing whatever specific action, then you can directly counter it and all sorts of different stuff like that. And of course, you've got all of the intrigue with the trading, which is what I really enjoy with this, where you've got sort of like the sort of back backstabby aspects. Whereas something like Power Grid, you do have backstabby aspects. It's primarily in the context of you're just taking something that somebody else wanted and you may not have even realized they wanted it, whereas in this you are able to more directly sabotage what people are doing. So in my opinion, it becomes a lot more fun. In addition, I love the versatility of Merchant of Venus because you can play it solo. I personally have not done it solo, so I can't really say too much about it, but I am very curious about how it would work. I have read the rules on it and it seemed very, very intriguing, but I do love the fact that we've got that option for versatility. You guys know that that is one of my big things, is to have versatility in games. But with that, Merchant of Venus is my number 2. At number 1, I've got a game that you guys are probably familiar with if you have seen my channel before. This is one of the games that I always cite whenever I say that Twilight Imperium gets kind of split down the middle. This particular game is Eclipse. So for those of you who don't know or who haven't seen it before, whenever I cite this, what I say is that Exodus Proxima Centauri is more the combative aspect that Twilight Imperium has, whereas Eclipse is more the economic aspect. What I love about this game the most is, again, just like with a lot of these other games, is you have a lot of different economic-based aspects. So for example, you've got tech upgrades, so you can upgrade your ships, you can upgrade, for better exploration, better combat, all of this kind of stuff, but you've only got a limited number of those technical upgrades. You've also got space exploration, where you're trying to take over the different planets and acquire their resources, but then you as a player have to think, is it worth it to hold on to it, or should you just let some other player have it? All of those kinds of things. It's a good mix. Now, I know the economic aspects of this, they don't quite take a back seat, but they are closer to the back seat compared to the other games, because in Eclipse you do have a combative aspect. The thing is, the economic aspect feeds directly into the combat, which is what I really, really enjoy. Again, I mentioned the tech upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So a good analogy for this would be XCOM, not the board game, but the video game, if you've ever played it. Specifically XCOM Enemy Unknown, the new one, the modern one, because in that you've got essentially 2 phases to the game. You've got the one phase where you're in the base and you're making your weapons and your armor and equipping your soldiers and all that kind of stuff, and then you've got the other phase where you're actually out and fighting the aliens. So they are inexorably linked to one another because one directly feeds into the other, and after you're finished with combat, then you bring back like the prisoners, you bring back the raw materials and stuff so that you can make the upgrades and everything. And Eclipse really feels the same way to me, where without the economic aspect, the combat aspect would be kind of boring, and without the combat aspect, then the economic aspect as it stands would have a much lower purpose, essentially. So it's a really great mix of both of them, and again, I like how they sort of stack on top of one another, and they just really feed off of one another to make a really amazing game overall. Eclipse, my number 1 economic-based board game. So that's it for me, folks. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite economy-based board games. Again, this is a really interesting category because even compared to some of the other ones that I've done that you can interpret in a lot of different ways, this one extremely so, because like I said at the beginning, literally any time you are exchanging money, currency, whatever it happens to be, with another player or with a bank or anything, and then you can argue this game has an economy, because that's really what it boils down to. You're exchanging something for something else. That is an economy. Pretty much any game ever does that. in some form or another. Settlers of Catan has this stupid joke of, do you have wood for sheep? You know, all this kind of thing. So do you consider that to be an economic game? I personally don't, because these are the types of things where I think of economics as. But that said, as always, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. What do you consider to be an economy in a game? What do you consider, like, how complex does it have to be before you say, yes, this game has an economy, all of that kind of stuff. I'm really curious what you all have to say about it. But with that, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. And as a side note, please, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and check out my new Facebook page. I actually made a Facebook page for my YouTube channel and my streaming and all that kind of stuff. So whenever I go in there, then I've got my live streams scheduled if you guys are interested in watching some of my live streams, and you can comment and let me know what you think, anything that you want me to make a video on, all of that good stuff. So check out the link in the description for my new Facebook page. I hope that you will check it out. But with that, thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much again, everybody, for watching my video on my top 5 favorite economic-based board games. I wanted to thank William McGinnis once again for putting the comment on my recent video reminding me that this is something I should do. As always, please let me know anything and everything you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you guys consider anything on the spectrum to be a full-fledged economic game, for example, something like Splendor, or do you want to have something with a little bit more meat on its bones? On top of that, what about something like Monopoly? Ooh. Regardless, as always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page, so you can see some more of my work, and if you want, please click on the big giant subscribe button so that you can see more of my videos in the future. Also, please follow me on Facebook. You can check the link in the description below so that you can get new posts and videos and all sorts of cool bonus stuff. Thanks very much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.